Hey there, Jeremy here. Welcome back to week 6 of Podcast Launch Diaries. That means that there are 4 weeks left until the launch of my new show, Build a Better Wellness Biz. And in this episode, we're going to share, like every week, what I've been up to over the past week as I move closer and closer to the launch and show you what goes on behind the scenes in an actual podcast launch like we do for our clients at Counterweight Creative here. So this week has been there were some highlights. A couple of the interviews that I did were just incredible, and I am so excited to share those with everyone. On the productivity side, the behind the scenes side, not so much. So we're going to get into all of that in this episode. So first things first, let's jump over to my time tracking here, like we do every week. And as you can see, I logged about 10 hours, just under 10 hours this week working on the podcast. Most of that was in relation to both doing the research for these 2 interviews as well as doing the interviews themselves. And both of these guests, one was Jimmy McKay and then Katrina Ubell. And both of them are podcasters in the health and wellness space, and both of them have really niche audiences, and both of them have over 3 million lifetime downloads. So what I've been learning, I feel like I already knew this, but it's been reinforced every single week. Every interview I do with people who have massive audiences, they are speaking to incredibly niche audiences. And so for Jimmy, for his audience, it's all physiotherapists. How many physiotherapists can there be out there? And yet he's got over 3 million downloads. And then Katrina, she is speaking to teaching weight loss for physicians, female physicians mainly. And so like how many women physicians are there, in the US or in the world? Obviously there are a lot, but to get, 3 million downloads. And one of the stories she shared was that the day that her podcast went live, or maybe it was the first week, somebody shared it in a group because it was so niche, because the community is so tight of practicing doctors, that somebody shared it in a Facebook group and immediately she got 10,000 downloads in that first week. So, this is just drives home the point again and again and again for me, and hopefully for you as well, that you can actually gain far more traction by aiming really narrow than by trying to appeal to everyone and speak to everyone. So that is definitely a lesson that I think is worth remembering. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm targeting this show to people in the health and wellness business space, because, I love talking about business to anyone and love talking about marketing to anyone. A lot of the techniques and practices for growing a business and using content marketing to grow an audience, those apply to any business out there. But it's just really hard to gain traction if, there are hundreds of other shows just teaching business, online business and marketing to just businesses at large. And so by going for health and wellness businesses, we have a lot of experience. A lot of our network at Counterweight Creative is in the health and wellness business space. And so that feels like a good place to niche down and speak to those people where we already kind of have an in, we already have a lot of experience. We know some of the challenges that they deal with and can speak to those much better than somebody else might be able to. So my goal is that this is going to be a much more personalized conversation with them around how to grow their businesses. And so I'm curious, if you're watching this, what is your niche? Leave me a comment below the video, and I would love to hear if you feel like you could niche down further, if you're gaining traction with your current niche, or if you still feel like it's too broad and vague, but you're not quite sure how to go more narrow with that. Let me know, and I would love to hear that. All right, so checking in the time, it looks like the past week I had quite a bit more. And actually, let's have a look at where we are total on the podcast so far. So far, I know this is a question that a lot of people have, or like how much time goes into creating and launching a podcast. And so far I put in 82 and a half hours. And there's actually a bunch of other time that isn't factored in here. Often I'll, go for walks and do guest research while I'm listening to a podcast that they've been on or something like that. So there's probably, 5 to 10 more hours that haven't been included in this, but do go into the actual episode production and the launch. So that is a hefty chunk of time, and then we're about just over halfway to the launch. So that should give you an idea. We'll obviously check in every week and see where this is going, how much time is being spent. But it is a lot, and that's the reason why normally when I am working with people and coaching people and getting towards a launch, a lot of people want to say, hey, I want to launch 2 weeks from now, or 3 weeks from now, or a month from now even. And I say, okay, you better have a lot of free time though, because it takes a lot of time to get all of the actual production done, but also come up with the strategy and all the systems in place and move things toward that launch so that you're doing that with intention and you're actually going to see results from that. So usually I recommend about 3 months. I've cut that a little bit short on my own launch, and I'm feeling the pressure because of it. I wish I did have another 3-4 weeks to kind of get some of these things in place, because with the number of interviews that I'm batching up front, that's just taking up so much time right now. Pretty much here, as you can see from this past week, it was pretty much all research and interviews, and that took up about 10 hours. So like I said, if you're going to be launching your own show, give yourself time, because it just all takes a lot longer than you think. All right, so let's jump over to some of my goals from last week. And this one was not good. I don't think I finished a single one of my goals. And part of that was my girlfriend and I, we were in Scotland. She's American, I'm Canadian. And with COVID going on right now, neither of us are allowed into the other's country. So we were over in the UK when the pandemic hit. So we decided just to stay there rather than be separated for an indefinite amount of time. Our visa ran out this week, so we headed to Portugal. So this week was all about, packing up and setting up now in Portugal in our new place in Lisbon here. So that kind of threw a bit of a wrench in the productivity side of things, but I knew that was coming, and I was still pretty aggressive with my goals last week. But I guess that's one for the, chaos side of life, and a 0 for me this week, as I was not able to get through a single one. That said, I do have some ideas. Mapping out the lead magnet, I don't have that down on paper, but in my head, I have a kind of business framework that I think is going to become this lead magnet. It's going to be something along the lines of, what the elements are that any wellness business needs to be successful online. And so that's going to be the lead magnet there. So I need to kind of bullet point it out and then write it up, and then get that set up online. So I think I kind of have an idea of that. And so I'm feeling pretty good about getting that together. Social media outreach and networking. I've done actually some of this and have started making some connections with people and started some conversations. So I'm going to continue to do that and continue talking with people online. One of the things I know I mentioned in the last video was about Austin Kleon's book, Show Your Work. I just finished that this week, and it's really interesting that I've been making that much more of a priority in my day-to-day. Just when I see something cool, I'll share that somebody else has posted, or if I'm doing something, whether it's just like taking a screenshot and posting that or whatever that is. And I'm actually finding that I'm starting to get some conversations started, and they haven't resulted in a meaningful number of maybe article reads right now. I don't have the podcast launched, obviously, or views for these videos, but it is cool to start seeing that, by sharing, that is a way of connecting and engaging with people, even if it's just mundane stuff that you normally wouldn't think is worth sharing or that other people might be interested in. So that's something that I've been doing and have been seeing, it seems like some success with, some early traction. So I'm going to keep doing that, keep doubling down on that. Along the same lines, I completely dropped the ball on the Twitter daily updates, Podcast Launch Diary updates this past week. And so we're going to resume those next week once I'm all reset here in Lisbon and have a new routine started. So if you were looking for those, sorry about that. Completely dropped the ball and missed those, but those will be back coming up. Finalizing music. Okay, so we do have some updates here. The music is not finalized, but if you'll recall from last week, I was talking with 2 different composers about music. And so one was actually, I was going to license an existing song, and we went back and forth over the price of that. And I really loved the song, but it ended up being too much. Basically, what his offer was to me was, I think, $500 for a 1-year license to use the song. So the songs used could be used forever. They could be online for the podcast forever, but I could only use them for 1 year in new episodes. So a year from now, if I was creating new episodes, I would either need to relicense or find another song. And I may have thought about it in another situation, but because I'd already spent the $300 getting this other composer to write a original song specifically for the show, it definitely wasn't in the budget. And even if I hadn't spent that money, needing to re-up every year, $500 would be a lot. I would have been willing to do it because I do love that music so much. If it was, $500 for just a one-time fee to use indefinitely, but I totally understand. I come from the music world and I know how hard it is to get paid for your work and also how valuable it is. So I, no hard feelings towards the guy who created the music, and hopefully I'm looking forward to working with him again at some point in the future, because his library is pretty awesome. And his name is Alex Weinstein, I believe, if you want to look him up. And he's got some awesome music out there. On the other hand, with the composer who I had been talking with, commissioning to get to write new original music for the podcast, we had one idea that he was working off of that I wasn't the biggest fan of. And so I gave him some feedback, asked if he had any other ideas, and he came up with something new that is really awesome. So I am now really excited about that. He's going to be creating and doing some tweaks, and probably today or tomorrow he's going to be sending over an updated version based on some previous feedback that I had given there. So I'm now hopeful that by next week that will be sorted. I could see that still being 2 weeks, although I am looking to start getting editing and piecing things together over the next week or so. So music is still in the works, but is making progress. Following up with potential collaborators, this is actually something I did do. So I did follow up with a bunch of the people and got some more people booked on the show who I think are going to be really great connections, just because we're kind of serving the same people, but not in the same way. So I'm looking forward to that, and those will be great connections for both the launch and future collaborations, just to help both of our platforms and audiences. So looking forward to really getting to know some of those people better. Guesting outreach. So this is something I have created a list of potential shows. And so as you can see, I've got about 37 right here. My strategy around this is, it's a bit difficult because I'm looking to appeal to wellness business owners. And there are some of these potential collaborators that I've talked about. They run other shows that talk about wellness business. So I definitely want to, guest on their shows if possible. I'm going to start off by having them on mine, and would love to make connections with them over there. But there's only really like 5 to 10 shows in that niche, and I'm looking to go bigger and broader than that with my guesting. I'd love to get on, really do a sprint here to get on, 40 to 50 shows over the rest of the year, kind of. And so that is the goal here. 40 to 50 shows over 6 months, that's a lot, but I'm going to obviously need to go a little bit broader than just health and wellness business podcasts. So what I'm doing is I'm opening that up, and I'm looking at, okay, what are other similar types of business podcasts out there, and entrepreneurship podcasts and those types of things, because I know that a lot of my audience, who are, specifically health and wellness business owners, they listen to a lot of other shows as well, just in the general online marketing space. And so I'm going to start looking at some of those shows and trying to reach out to those hosts and pitch myself as a guest. And probably what I'm going to be doing is pitching my knowledge around using podcasting to leveraging podcasting to grow your business, and where a lot of people go wrong with the marketing side of things, because there's a lot of people who talk about how to start a podcast and not a lot of people who talk about the actual marketing side of things. And after putting together Podcast Marketing Academy and seeing the results from that, I'm feeling a lot more confident in myself and my ability to teach that, and that I have something worth sharing with other people, which probably many of you have faced some imposter syndrome as well. And I know I was going into that program, but now seeing the results that people are getting from it, and hearing the feedback, I'm kind of like, oh, I guess I had something to share, and I guess it always wasn't as obvious to other people as it might have been to me at times. So I'm feeling really solid about that, and feeling a little bit of resistance around starting to do the outreach, but I know that I need to get the ball rolling there for both the podcast launch, but also past that, just continued growth and exposure. I also actually this week recorded a mini course on how to reach out to, how to do research and reach out to other podcast hosts to grow your own audience. And so that is something that I still need to do some post-production and stuff like that, but that is going to be something that is going to be freely available. And then we also have a bigger course that goes into much more depth as well. And so that's a paid course. And then there's Podcast Marketing Academy, which is the big course, which is really everything I know about marketing a podcast. And so the next Podcast Marketing Academy, that only goes live twice a year. That next one is going to be going live towards the end of September. So you can find the link in the description below the video for more information on that if you want to sign up for the waitlist or find out more about it. So that is there. And like I said, I will give you an update when the free podcast guesting research and outreach mini course goes live. And I say it's a mini course. I have a way of like overdoing everything and going on way too long. So it's actually a pretty solid course that probably you might have to pay for elsewhere. So definitely look out for that when that comes out. So podcast guesting research is coming along. Outreach has not happened yet. So there's still some progress to there, and that's feeling like it's getting a little bit urgent. Creating SOPs for episode production. This has kind of, some progress has been made on there. And so I want to show you this document that I created here. And this was actually inspired by Monique Malcolm, who has a podcast called Pimp Your Brilliance. And it is basically, her show is all about taking your existing knowledge and ideas and monetizing that by creating a product around it. And she's a member of the current Podcast Marketing Academy cohort, and she shared her show notes template with the group last week on our weekly Q&A call. And I was like, whoa, this is exactly what I've been looking for, because I had a kind of rough show notes template, but it wasn't great. And so this is basically inspired by what she had done, and just creating all of these kind of fields in a Google Doc, and then being able to just go through and fill them out, and then also have all the information in one place to be able to repurpose later. And so let's walk through this a little bit. So at the start here, we've just got general show info. And so this is going to be, keyword targeting for the show, words or phrases to use, words or phrases to avoid, the brand or host tone guidelines. This is a template that we're also going to be using for our clients on in Counterweight Creative. And so that's why I have this stuff here, is because our show notes writers it might be different for each show that they work on. And so here's just a one-stop reference for all of that. So then we've just got notes. So while you're listening to the episode, what are some things that pop out? And for me, for my own shows, this might be just things during the interview that I copy and paste in here, or whatever that is, to just have some general notes and background available here. Then down here, we've got episode title, alternate title, guest name, the episode description. So this is for Libsyn or whatever the host is, the episode subtitle, which will go down here. And as you can see, I've got just some helper text along the side here in comments. Over here, we use a tool called, it's CoSchedule is the company that makes it, and it's called Headline Analyzer. And it's a fantastic tool for writing better headlines, basically. You can put a bunch in there, and it spits out ratings based on a number of factors. And so usually I'm aiming for like a 70 out of 100 score. And so it's nice just to have a couple of title options here. And usually when I'm writing titles for things, I'll write down, 10, 15, 20 different options and see what's feeling the best to me, but also rating the best in the headline analyzer and going with that. And really the only reason for the alternate title here is for our clients. If they say like, I don't know how I'm feeling about that one, then we have a backup to go to there. But for my own show, I probably won't do it that way. All right. Then we've got the actual show notes structure. And so you can set this up however you want, but this is how I like to set them up, where the first paragraph here is a introduction, and there's a hook that is going to draw people into reading more. Then we've got the first heading, which is going to be about the guest or whatever. There's the guest's kind of bio and about them. And then we've got the heading number 2, which is kind of the first main point of the episode, and some body text there, a couple paragraphs, and then, main point number 2, and so on. More show notes text there. Down here, we've got quotes from the episode. And so usually I'm going to aim to do 3 to 5 quotes from the episode. In this episode, this will be like a bullet list of takeaways with timestamps back to those points in the interview. Then we've got key takeaways. So something that I've not always done, but I'm really shifting my mentality around show notes is the way I used to write show notes was to be more of a tease for the episode. And now I'm wanting to shift that to be more like useful in its own right and really give away the good stuff from the episode in the show notes, so people don't even need to listen to the podcast if they don't want to. And I think that might sound counterintuitive sometimes, like we really want to get those downloads, but my mindset is shifting much more to like, let's give people information wherever they're wanting to consume it. And if they consume it on the website, great. If it helps them, great. And maybe they'll sign up to the email list, maybe they'll follow me elsewhere, maybe they'll listen to a future episode. And so, a lot of people are readers, they're not listeners. And so I'm just looking to put that information out there if I think it's helpful. And so I want to summarize the key takeaways here, which I think is useful to listeners, so they can go back and be like, okay, what are the 5 things I need to remember, the 3 things I need to remember? Or, I listened to this podcast 2 months ago, I know it was good, but what were those lessons? I want a refresher. They can find those there without having to listen to the full 45 to 60 minute episode. And then also for people who haven't listened, maybe they can take something away from this as well. So I'm definitely moving towards a more maybe generous approach to content and not gating it within the podcast. All right, then we've got links and resources, which will go here, and I'm probably just gonna make this a little bit bigger here. And then we've got some additional resources. So the way I've set this up is this is episode specific resources, and this is kind of constant resources that you will always be promoting at the bottom of your show notes, whether that's your social information or your website or whatever that is. And in this case as well, we have a production credit for our team and for our client shows. One of the things that I'm looking to do as well is create Twitter threads, both Twitter threads and Instagram carousel posts, by basically like summarizing the episode's content and takeaways into 5 to 10 concise posts. And so those can be put on a graphic that will become an Instagram carousel. So it might be 5 to 10 graphics that each kind of tell the story of the episode as you swipe through them. And also on a Twitter thread, which might be 5 to 10 different posts, tweets that outline the episode's takeaways there as well. And so this just breaks it up into nice, you can easily copy and paste just one field at a time. And it's all laid out there. So that's something. Then social captions will be written out here, both for myself to promote, as well as for the guest to promote. Those will be different captions. So I want to supply them with that to make it easier for them to share. And then that is it. So this is just a template that I've come up with. I'm probably going to tweak it a bit more as I get using it, but maybe that is useful to you as well as a way to lay out your show notes so that you can easily pull the different content and plug it in where it needs to go. So yeah, that is one part of the kind of podcast SOPs that are coming together, but I have not made a ton of progress on that. So that will still be to come. So I think that is pretty much it for this week. I have 2 more interviews next week. And I will say that actually the interviews, I know in a previous week, I had mentioned that they were, I felt underprepared for some of them. And had some really great conversations, and I think they all came out really well. But I had felt like while I was doing the interview, I wish I knew a little bit more to be able to dig in and push in on some things a little bit further. And I didn't have that. But as I've been spending additional time doing the research and prep for the episodes, I'm feeling more and more confident. And I think, some of that's coming from just doing more interviews as well. It's been a long time since I've done interviews, a couple years since I've been a podcast host last. So I think it's getting back into that groove and getting some more confidence. And actually two of the past 3 guests at the end basically gave me these stunning testimonials of wow, I wasn't expecting those questions. I love what we got into there. And so, that's always just really, really high praise as a podcast host and interviewer and really what you want to hear. So that's exciting. Now I just don't want to get complacent. I want to keep doing the work, keep doing the prep, and making sure that I am churning out some fantastic interviews. So I think that is it. I've got 2 interviews next week, and I'm really excited about both of them. One is going to be all about branding and marketing funnels. And then the other one is going to be, I'm not quite sure actually what we're going to get into. She's got a lot of information, a long history of being self-employed, has built a multi-7-figure business. And so I think that there's a lot to get into. And as I go through the research further, going to narrow down on what the theme is going to be there. But either way, I've had a few fantastic conversations with her in the past. And I know that this one is going to be really great, whatever we end up talking about. So in next week's episode, I guess you'll get to find out. In the meantime, let me know where you're at if you are launching your own show. If there is anything in this video or any of the others that you wish you knew when you did launch your show, if you're not launching for the first time. And leave me a comment below. And yeah, please reach out with any questions, and I will be more than happy to help. Or if there's anything that you want to see in a future video, I will be sure to cover that. All right, until next time, take it easy, and I'll see you then. Bye.